Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you rock dwellers. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the patriot from the battle-born state, the silver state of Nevada. And that's my friend Sharon Engel. Sharon, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks, Rick. And you know, I got my silver state on my mind today, and that's a problem. We're in a legislative session. We're not even 60 days into a 120-day session. We have a 4-month session every 2 years. So we're one of the few states that doesn't meet annually. It's biannually. And as Mark Twain said, whenever the legislature's in session, the people suffer. So, and he was talking about Nevada because at the time he was the editor of the Territorial Enterprise in Virginia City, Nevada. So he does know what he's talking about, especially this cycle through. Everybody knows that Nevada went blue. And our legislature is blue, our governor is blue, and like I said, we're not even halfway through yet. And we've had 2 resignations now. 2 Democrats have resigned. One resigned because he's probably going to prison for FEC violations. He used almost $500,000 for personal use. He financed a nightclub, and he rented an SUV, and he's living high on the hog here. He resigned, and then last week another one resigned over sexual harassment charges. So here we go. Now the law in Nevada says that if you resign and your post or any reason that your post is left empty, the county commissioners of your county must appoint, not an election, but must appoint, and they must appoint from the same party that you were elected from. So a Democrat must replace a Democrat. So now we've got 2 appointed legislators. It's getting way out of the field of elected anymore. Now we've got appointed folks serving in our legislature. So I guess I have to just say that's on my mind. And we've got a ton of really ugly legislation, things that our listeners would just go, oh, you're kidding. Planned Parenthood, for instance, we were already funding them $1 million a year for Planned Parenthood. And of course, everybody knows that when you give them your tax dollars, they may not spend it directly on abortion, but that means that all of their donations and other fundraising efforts can go into abortion. They just will say, well, we're not using it on abortion, which is probably true, but there is still funding abortions, and you're helping. You're not willing. An unwilling participant in this thing. Well, now they were getting $1 million, so now they've upped the ante, $12 million, 12 times. And they're always saying we've got a budget crisis. Of course, this isn't in the governor's budget, so they're going to have to figure out where they're going to come up with this $12 million. But that's one. Assisted suicide, and we had a fellow on last week, Bill McMorris, who talked about assisted suicide and how the insurance companies get rich over this, and because it's a whole lot less expensive to convince a person that it's their time, give them the poison pill, and not have to pay for that expensive treatment. So anybody over 65 really is in danger. And of course, the federal government probably has their eye on Social Security, because the fewer of us around collecting it, the less the problem is, right? All of a sudden, we're becoming an endangered species, Rick.
Sharon, remember those death panels? Remember the death panels we heard so much about when Obamacare is being debated? Oh, no such thing as death panels. No such thing as death panels. Now they're talking about legalizing euthanasia. Yeah. I mean,
well, it's not a panel. So they've got a sort of technicality. It's not. It's just the whole society has gone upside down. And if you're disabled, old, or in the womb, your life is in danger in our
That's
culture.
right. Yeah.
And these bills just are a part of that. I'm so tempted to go to the financials now on my legislators and find out how many of them took money from these insurance companies, because by golly, there's got to be a kickback in this assisted suicide thing, I would think. But
Sharon,
that's not all of them. They're really bad this time.
Mary and I watched a documentary last night. I would advise everyone to watch it. It's called All the Queen's Horses. And it's about how a political official, an appointed political official, a bookkeeper, if you will, in Dixon, Illinois, small town, home of Ronald Reagan, a population of about 16,000 people. Well, over a period of about 15 years, she embezzled, get this, $53 million. $53 million she embezzled from this little town of about 16,000 people. And she got away with this for, as I said, for about 15 years. Finally, she was caught. But, it leads me to wonder. It leads me to think. This is just not an isolated incident. I'm not saying that every municipality, there's somebody in it that can embezzle 15 or $53 million. But I'm sure there's embezzling, payoffs, taking care of family, taking care of friends, going on in every branch of government, everywhere. And who gets stuck with the bill? We the people, we the taxpayer get stuck with it all.
Well, it's because the folks we've elected to be accountable often don't know where to look for the problem. And the actual governments are being run by, as we found out, the deep state. And every county, every city, every state has a deep state bureaucracy that's actually running the show.
You're right about that. And Sharon, you mentioned a situation where these two legislatures out in Nevada have resigned. They're Democrats, by the way. Let's not forget to mention they're Democrats, because if they were Republicans, surely the other side, the other media would be telling us about it. They are Democrats, and according to what you're telling us, the bylaws say another Democrat must be nominated. So they're going to have almost 2 years of an incumbency. And of course, the power is with the incumbent.
Absolutely.
The money, the political connections, the title, wherewithal. You know what they should do, Sharon? There ought to be a law. There ought to be a law that says if you're appointed to a position, you cannot run to fill that position unless you wait one entire voting cycle. That's what there should, but that'll never happen, because these politicians, they take care of themselves, their families, and their friends, and all the rest of us get the honor and privilege of paying for it all.
Well, and more, our culture seems to move toward the appointed. It's so much neater. Yeah, it's not as messy as an election. You don't have to go through elections if you can just appoint. And of course, socialism and communism, that's their big thing. Don't let the people have a say. It's too messy. Just get the dictator you like, put in the people you like, and of course the state, the government knows best for you anyway. So just sit back for the ride.
Well, like I was saying, Dixon, Illinois is this woman, this bookkeeper, this person who was handling all the money, got away with it for years. $53 million she embezzled, almost $54 million. I mean, check it out. The name of the documentary is called All the Queen's Horses. There's articles about it. There's YouTube features about it. You don't have to get the exact documentary you got, but there's a lot on the internet about her. And just Google All the Queen's Horses. What a story. And as I said, this happened in Dixon, Illinois, the land of Ronald Reagan, population of about 16,000 people. Yet she was able to embezzle over $53 million. It's really incredible. Sharon, we need to go to a break. And you are watching and listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. Yes, that Sharon Angle. And today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. We've got three great guests, three great topics of conversation for you today. Don't go away. On the other side of this break, Sharon and I will tell you who our guests are and what we're going to be talking about. Be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Ready with guests?
I am.
Okay. And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. For rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio show, you'll find our TV show, and a lot of great articles and information. Sharon, we've got some great guests joining us today.
Yes, we do. Our first guest is Devin Watkins, who is an attorney at the Competitive Enterprise Institute and the author of a brief to the Supreme Court advocating a strong non-delegation doctrine. We've asked Devin to come on and talk about an article that he wrote for the Washington Examiner, Why Trump's Border Wall National Emergency is Constitutional. Now, why do we have to defend that? It's just, it makes me angry that we always are having to defend what we do. And of course, it brings out the best in us. That's what I think, because now we're going to get Devin on, and he's going to explain why this is a constitutional effort that the president has undertaken, and that we should be very comfortable in what he's done. And thank goodness that we're finally getting something done about this border. And our second guest is Tyler O'Neill, who is the assistant editor of PJ Media and a conservative commentator. He's written for numerous publications, including the Christian Post, National Review, the Washington Free Beacon, the Daily Signal, AEI's Values and Capitalism, and the Colson Center's Breakpoint. He enjoys Indian food, board games, and talking carelessly about politics, religion, and culture. So we're going to get some careless talk from Tyler, along with his article, CNN Reality Check Slams Trump, Says Dems Aren't Socialists. Wow. They don't even understand the definition, and that they are trying to defend against that is almost laughable, because
it is indeed.
We're just seeing this socialism in spades. And of course, Bernie Sanders didn't even hide the fact, and I don't think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yeah, she's proud too. So they're all proud socialists, and I don't know why CNN feels the need to deny.
Because they're also socialist, and
that's true.
Be proud of it. If that's what you are, be proud of it. I'm a capitalist. I'm proud of it. If you're a socialist, be proud of it.
Well, I'm an American, and I'm proud of that, too. So our last guest is Lathan Watts, and he's a National Review Institute Regional Fellow and Director of the Legal Communications for the First Liberty Institute, a nonprofit law firm dedicated to restoring religious freedom for all Americans. And Lathan is going to be talking about what starts in South Carolina and what has started in the South Carolina legislature and that flagship university there. Now, we're just going to tease you with that, because he says it's a fight worth having. And these state legislatures, we know that whatever they start, it soon spreads. So we've got national bills all going on all around this nation on similar topics, because the Democrats are good at one thing, and that's their messaging. And when they've got a message, they pound it everywhere they can, and now it's in the state legislatures.
All right. Well, Sharon, there is some news about the 2020 presidential election. Two more candidates have made it official. One is Christine Gillibrand. The other is Beto O'Rourke. And Beto O'Rourke, and I know you wanted to talk about him.
Well, that's right. He's outraised Bernie Sanders now overnight. $6.1 million raised in an overnight effort, and that puts him in as the front runner. And of course, there's a long article about all the other contenders now, how that makes them feel. I'm still kind of holding out with our guest, Gerard Lamero. He made a prediction about Trump before Trump was ever even really a gleam in the Republican Party's eye. They all had their eyes on someone else. And he said, no, Trump's going to be the winner. And he prognosticated here on Conservative Commando's radio show about 2 months ago. And he said, don't worry about all the contenders. It's going to be Michelle Obama and Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's going to win. So we'll see how his prognostication works out this time. But I thought we should mention that once again, that we're not done by a long shot with this field that's coming up for 2020, and Beto O'Rourke is just the latest flash in the pan here.
All right. And this was an article from Politico that's talking about Beto O'Rourke. Despite crowds, Beto campaign got off to a very rocky rollout. A string of early mishaps, from explaining policy to cleaning up statements, raises questions about the candidate's long-term prospects. And, Sharon, Beto O'Rourke, to me, is a great example as to why we should actually raise the voting age. Beto O'Rourke is the same person that, as a young man, got a DWI, as a young man was arrested for burglary, and on Friday, the second day of the campaign, the former Texas congressman was forced to apologize for what he called, quote, really hateful writings from his youth after a fictional post he wrote as a teenager about murdering children surfaced. And this is Beto O'Rourke. This is a former U.S. congressman. This is the guy who ran for Senate against Ted Cruz. And by the way, it's very interesting. Reuters knew about this story. Reuters held this story till after the senatorial election. But this is a guy who's now running for president. And you might say youthful indiscretion, and you can. I did some really stupid things as a kid. I'm sure we all did. But we don't reward stupidity and ignorance with lowering the voting age. Nancy Pelosi the other day was saying, it's important that we lower the voting age to 16. Oh my gosh, 216. I'm for raising the voting age. I'd love to see it 35, actually. Well, in my opinion, that's when people start to get a brain. Democrats want to lower it to 16. Beto O'Rourke, terrific example why this is a stupid idea.
Well, we certainly do want a lying, thieving drunk as a president, right?
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
I was one of that generation that got the voting age lowered to 18. And the reason was because we were old enough to fight. We were old enough to vote. And it was during all that draft that was going on in Vietnam. And
yes.
I still stand by that if you are going to be a part of this country to that extent where your life is on the line, then you certainly have a say-so in the government that governs you.
All
so
right, well, how about doing this?
I'm going to say 18 is good, because that's when responsibility starts to strike these folks.
Sharon, I never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day, Sharon Engel, where you and I disagree on something, but this is it. This is it.
This is it.
Okay. I can remember some of the stupid idiot things that I did as a kid. And I wasn't a bad kid. I never got in legal problems. I got suspended once for throwing a snowball in high school, and it happened to hit a teacher. I was not aiming for the teacher, but I got suspended for that. I think I should have been. But, I know kids that did a lot of stupid things. We see tons of examples of kids doing stupid things in high school and college. It's spring break now. Oh, let's celebrate spring break. Let's celebrate these kids getting out of college, heading to places like Pensacola, Florida, or Miami, or whatever. I'd hate to be a cop down there at this time. All the drinking, all the partying, all the girls getting pregnant. Each and every year we hear about alleged rapes happening down there, riots, police being called out. No. Let's raise the voting age. Let's raise the voting age. Let's make one exception. That one exception is anyone who serves in the armed services. I'll go for that. But other than that, let's raise it.
Well,
raise it.
I think I could agree with you on that. And here's just another point. I don't think college professors should be allowed to vote. Oh my goodness, they are. There is just such an amazing disconnect between Americanism and our university system that it boggles the mind.
Yeah.
And that's really where a lot of our unaccountable youth are coming out with these strange ideas. It isn't their home life. Their parents are as amazed as you and I are, because these kids come home from college and they say, who is this child? I don't know this kid. He wasn't raised like that.
Nope. Something happens. Anyway, I can remember being 19 thinking that I knew everything, and now I realize at that time I knew nothing. I still don't know that I know everything there is to know, but at 19 I thought so. But with that, Sharon, we do need to take a break, get our first guest on, and you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about, in South Carolina, the state legislature and the flagship university seem to be at odds whether college students should be required to study the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. This is why we have to raise the voting age. Sharon and I will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It
was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty HealthShare has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty HealthShare is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. Sharon, before we went to the break, I got our guests out of line. And I was actually talking about our 5:30 guest, which is Lathan Watts. But our first guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to introduce Devin Watkins, who is an attorney at the Competitive Enterprise Institute and the author of a brief to the Supreme Court advocating a strong non-delegation doctrine. Devin, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. And before we get started on your article about Trump and why his national emergency is constitutional, I want to know what a non-delegation doctrine is. Tell me about that, because it's a big deal for you to be going to the Supreme Court. They don't accept every case.
Yes, and this is a very interesting case. It has a very long history, going back even before the founding of our country. The problem was that in England, it was generally understood that the king didn't write the law. That was Parliament's job. And only Parliament could do that. Well, at one point, Parliament actually gave the power to the king to do this, and disastrous things happened. They eventually repealed it and said this can never happen again. And then when our country started, our founders understood that principle and kind of incorporated those ideas into our Constitution so that only Congress could create the law, not the president. And even where Congress says, President, go create the law and do whatever you want, that isn't constitutional. Only Congress can create the law that binds us, because Congress is the people that we elect.
So that would just take out this executive order stuff, wouldn't it?
Actually, no. In this case, it wouldn't. So the power to write legislation, the rules that bind our conduct, that is the stuff that Congress cannot delegate to the president. However, this isn't about that. This emergency declaration and the statute that's underneath this doesn't actually bind our conduct at all. All it does is handle how the federal government internally allocates money among various agencies. And as long as it's limited only to that subject, the Congress can be as vague as they want. They can say, here's a pile of money, go use it for whatever you want to use it. Or they can limit it in any way that Congress chooses to.
And so that's exactly what President Trump has done, isn't it? He's just enforcing a law that they've already passed and actually given money for. And he's saying, now, this is what I want to use the money for. Is that correct?
Yes, this is what Congress has specified. They appropriated this money into a bucket for military construction relief. And Congress also passed a law called the Military Construction Codification Act of 1982, which says that when the president declares a national emergency, he's able to reallocate these funds to other projects. And that is what he has done. He's followed the statute just as Congress intended.
Well, now, of course, the Democrats are claiming this is not an emergency. What do you say to that, Devin?
Well, if they don't think it's an emergency, then they're free to, under the National Emergencies Act, discontinue the national emergency declaration by the president. They've already passed a joint resolution terminating the emergency through the House and the Senate. I expect Trump has vetoed it, and it'll now come back to the House and the Senate to decide if they want to override that veto. And if they don't think it's an emergency, then they should override that veto. That's within their power to do so. But I'm suspecting that they don't have enough people in Congress that agree with them on that.
Well, I'm suspecting that too, and that's why they're just raising a bunch of objections in the press, because the press is definitely on their side. They can get the votes there, right?
Yes, the press is definitely not on Trump's side, or at least most of the press.
And so you've written this article that the national emergency is constitutional. Talk to us a little bit about the Constitution and why you feel that Trump is well within his right to declare this a national emergency and use this money this way.
Well, it goes back to the history of the appropriations. Appropriations under the Constitution have to come through Congress. Congress has to appropriate money before it can be spent. In this case, Congress has appropriated money. It has specified how much money and what bucket that money will go into and what kind of things it can be spent on. And they also conditioned that one possible way that this money can be spent, if a national emergency is declared, is for other projects. And that is all that the Constitution requires, is that the money be appropriated. In this case, it was appropriated. And so I'm not sure I understand exactly why some of the Republicans, even Republicans that I like and agree with most of the time, like Senator Paul and Mike Lee, those are some really great Republicans, but I think they're wrong on this issue. This money has been appropriated by Congress.
Well, I think that you and a lot of other Americans are quite stymied or amazed, at least, that these 12 Republican senators, Mike Lee is one, Rand Paul another, that have said, no, we don't think that he should have done this. Is it because they don't have a border crisis in their state? You know, certainly I've not heard of a border crisis in Tennessee or in Utah, but those of us who do have crises like Nevada, we're seeing a great flood in, even though we don't have a border, we see a flood of problems coming from that border.
Well, it is up to Congress if they, it isn't only the constitutional question that's before them, it is also the question of, do they think it's an emergency or not? And there may be policy reasons why they decide they want to stop the emergency where they don't think it's an emergency, or in the future they may decide they want to amend the act so the president doesn't have this power. That's within their authority as Congress to decide what they want to do on that subject. But as to the constitutional arguments, I don't think they're right on the constitutional arguments.
Well, now I want to get to another. You just mentioned aside in your article the power of eminent domain. Mm-hmm. What does that have to do with the border wall? Let's talk about that.
Well, some of the border is owned by the federal government, and on that section of the border, they can build a border wall with the money that's been reallocated by President Trump. But about 2/3 of the border is not owned by the federal government. It's owned by private individuals. And if they wish to build a border wall across those private individuals' land, they have to get the agreement of those individuals. They can't just violate their property rights and go do whatever they want on that person's property. And so they have a number of choices. They can buy the land from these individuals. They can come to kind of an agreement where they pay the individuals so that they can just have an easement across their land or something else like that. But one of the powers that Congress has but has not invoked is the power of eminent domain, or at least may have. In the last 100 years or so, Congress and the federal government has used eminent domain to seize land from private individuals for a public purpose. Sadly, the Supreme Court has defined public purpose rather broadly, allowing the government to take a lot more land than I think the Constitution was originally understood to allow. But the power of eminent domain has not been given to the President Trump in this case. And so he doesn't have the power to just seize and take people's lands. If he wants to build this border wall, he's going to have to buy the land from the individuals he wants to build the wall across. There is some real controversy as to whether or not the federal government has the power of eminent domain at all. The Fifth Amendment talks about the takings clause, as it were, the ability of government to take property. But it's questionable whether this actually applied to anywhere that's outside of federal territories or the District of Columbia. For the first 150 years or so, the federal government asked states to seize land on their behalf. It didn't go out and just seize land within states. And then it was up to the state to go and seize the land and then turn it over to the federal government.
So we've got a real, it sounds like this could be a real sticky issue when it comes to building that wall. As you say, 2/3 is on private land. We've got to go to a quick break. We are here with Devin Watkins, who's an attorney at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and we're talking about the national emergency for the border wall and how it's constitutional. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We'll be right back after this message.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right to vote. It's so it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled. It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America, where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. And our guest this segment is Devin Watkins. He's an attorney for the Competitive Enterprise Institute. We're discussing an article that Devin wrote. It's posted on the Washington Examiner. Why Trump's border wall national emergency is constitutional. Devin, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time. Devin, this whole idea of a national emergencies is nothing new, even though the press may want you to think it. But Barack Obama declared national emergencies for 8 times. 8 times he declared national emergencies. No one got their undies in a bunch like this time. What's the difference?
Well, as far as I know, President Obama never reallocated money under any of his emergencies. Most of his emergencies had to deal with foreign relations, seizing bank accounts of people that are overseas, whether they're terrorists or other bad actors. And there were a couple of emergencies that did use the Military Construction Codification Act in the past, usually around military bases and things like that. In this case, however, I think it was also amplified by the public fight that Trump had with Congress over whether or not to appropriate such money. And I'm not sure even members of Congress quite really understood what they were doing. When they appropriated this money because of the existing statutory law, the president was well within his power to do this.
Well, when you talk about a public fight with Congress, that sounds very similar to what President Trump is dealing now with Congress. I mean, am I mixing apples and oranges here?
Well, most of the time, there's haven't been very public fights in the past on national emergencies. Right. Most national emergencies, the president declares them, and they barely even get noticed. We've had more than 50 national emergencies. We got lots of national emergencies that are currently on the books as active national emergencies, a lot more than people think. Even the 9/11 national emergency, still active today.
Devin, in your article, you write, aside from the president border wall dispute, people in both political parties have expressed fear that a future president could willy-nilly declare a national emergency on other priorities for which he can't gain approval from the legislature, like guns, like climate change. That reminds me a lot of something Barack Obama said, that he has a pen and a cell phone. All right, and again, I got to ask you. You say that, well, this is the first time dealing with allocated monies, but when you're dealing with legislation like climate change, I could, from what I understand, from listening to experts, from having guests here on Conservative Commandos, my God, that's going to be a huge reallocation of funds. Is that correct? So what I'm getting at is I'm almost drawing a parallel here between him, President Trump allocating funds for this border wall, and what could potentially be happening in the future, especially if you have a divided government like we have now, one side being Democrat, the other side being Republican. Okay, say the situation is reversed and we have a Democrat in the White House. We have Republicans controlling the legislature, very much like what we saw with Barack Obama. You know, I could see the same contention going on. And what I'm getting at with my question about Barack Obama and with Donald Trump, As you said, there's been a lot of national emergencies declared. We haven't seen the brush up that we are seeing with this border wall. And I'm going to draw the conclusion here, has nothing more to do with the Democrats don't want to give Donald Trump anything. After all, in 2006, Congress, and many members of Congress were there in 2006 when they authorized spending the money. Nancy Pelosi was there. Chuck Schumer was there. I think Hillary Clinton was there. They said spend the money for the border wall. Not so much anymore that Donald Trump is the president.
Yeah, it is true that that Democrats have supported border wall funding in the past. And I do remember Nancy Pelosi saying that they wouldn't give $1 to the president for a border wall. Mm-hmm. Obviously, once it got all the way through Congress, a lot more than $1 was given to the president in directly appropriated money. And it does have to do, I think, with this fight between Democrats and the president as to whether or not and how much money should be allocated to this border wall.
Our guest this segment on Conservative Commandos is Devin Watkins. He's an attorney at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Devin, earlier in the conversation, you and Sharon were talking about eminent domain, which is a huge conservative issue. Conservatives are very leery of government taking private property. However, the border wall is also a conservative issue. Mm-hmm. And how much do you think that this is going to hurt President Trump if he does use eminent domain to take land to build the border wall?
I don't think he'll be able to. Congress hasn't given him that power. If he tries to seize land like that, the property owners are going to go to court and fight him, and he'll be stopped by the courts. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been given the power of eminent domain in this case, and I haven't even heard him claim that he has been given that kind of power. That would be quite a problem. I know President Trump in the past has supported eminent domain generally. I'm much more hesitant on eminent domain. I think the Kelo decision by the Supreme Court, where they said that that government can seize land just for general development purposes and hand it off to other private parties, I don't think that qualifies as a public use under the original meaning.
Devin, also in your article, you say one could argue a border wall isn't a real emergency and that judges should stop the president. You also write the problem is that judges historically have tried not to second guess the president's national security judgment. Devin, I would argue that is in days gone by. And now it seems like the left, the opposition, go out and judge shop to find a judge to stop the president. We've seen many examples of judges stopping president's orders. So I think that we're living in different times, don't you?
Well, there are several thousand federal judges out there, and if any one of them decides they want to issue an order halting this, they have the power to do so, assuming that the case is properly brought before them with plaintiffs that have standing. And then normally, if that happens, it would be appealed to a circuit court. And usually the circuit court would be very hesitant to want to uphold such an order. However, especially with the Ninth Circuit and a few of the others, it seems that many of the circuit courts are allowing these injunctions to go forward. But if there is a injunction, especially a nationwide injunction against the federal government over a major policy by the president, that's the kind of thing I would be surprised if the Supreme Court doesn't take up. And the current Supreme Court, as we saw in the travel ban, doesn't seem very forgiving for those kind of injunctions that try to second guess the national security decisions of the president.
Devin Watkins, attorney at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. We want to thank you for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Devin, please tell our audience how they could read your article, follow your work, and learn more about the Competitive Enterprise Institute?
Well, my article and all of the stuff I've done and the other people at CEI have done are on our website at cei.org. You can also follow me on Twitter at Liberty Devon.
Devin Watkins, again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and your knowledge and sharing it with us. Take care and God bless.
Nice to be.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to talk about how CNN is defending Democrats by insisting President Trump and Fox News are wrong, that the 2020 Democrat candidates are not really socialists. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. Today, my co-host is Sharon Angle. Want to give a shout out to folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and seen on the 7 stations of the AUN television network in California. And with that, Sharon, our next guest is here with us. Please make him feel welcome.
It's always an honor to introduce Tyler O'Neill, who is the assistant editor at PJ Media and a conservative commentator. He's written for numerous publications, including the Christian Post, National Review, the Washington Free Beacon, the Daily Signal, AEI's Values in Capitalism, and the Colson Center's Breakpoint. He enjoys Indian food, board games, and talking carelessly about politics, religion, and culture. Tyler, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks, Sharon. Rick, glad to be here. Actually, I have two. It said you read talking carelessly, and it's ceaselessly. I do talk carelessly sometimes. I hope not often. I also have to get that updated because as of today, I have officially been promoted. I'm a senior editor.
Wow.
At PJ Media, no longer
Congratulations on that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we will update our reading as well as our writing on the subject of Tyler O'Neill. We want to talk about your writings. You've written an article, CNN Reality Check slams Trump, says Dems aren't socialists. Now, this sounds like, I don't know, kind of an oxymoron, I guess, because certainly Bernie Sanders has said he's a socialist, never denied it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she says socialism's great, we like it. So why is CNN trying to defend against it? It would seem that they're rolling, the millennials seem to think they want to be socialists. We've seen polls that almost 50% of them say socialism is great. So what's the deal with CNN saying, oh no, Dems aren't socialists?
Well, I think CNN has read the writing on the wall. There's a recent Fox News poll showing that Americans are 2 times more likely to support capitalism. That's 57% than they are socialism at 25%. A full 59% say they have an unfavorable view of socialism, and only 28% say so about capitalism. So CNN maybe sees this poll, sees some other polls, knows that, John Avlon, he made a good, quick defense of capitalism. I've got to say I agree with him when it comes to the values of capitalism and the benefit that it gives our society. But when it comes to Democrats, he wanted to carry the water for them. And this is a really eye-opening political move from CNN and John Avlon here, because a whole bunch of Democratic candidates, the two that he talked about were John Hickenlooper, governor of my former home state, Colorado, and Tulsi Gabbard in Hawaii. And both of them are much more middle-of-the-road Democrats. It's kind of odd to say that these days because even they're pretty far to the left. But when it comes to the spectrum of Democrats, they're on the more moderate side, and they aren't willing to say they're capitalist. And you have these interviews where John Hickenlooper, who had a microbrewery, who achieved his success and became Colorado's governor because of that, in part, he won't say he's a capitalist. They ask him over and over again, are you a capitalist? Are you a capitalist? He's like, no. Or at least, I don't like labels. And Tulsi Gabbard, same thing. I don't like labels. And here CNN's like, don't worry, guys. Don't worry. They're really capitalists. And I'm just scratching my head like, does anybody believe this nonsense?
Well, and that's kind of what we did when we read the title to your article, What's CNN All About? But now we understand that it's truly all about politics. It's getting that vote. And if we have to lie a little, what's the harm, right? Do you think that CNN is lying about them being capitalists? You point out that you have some closet capitalists within the Democrat Party.
I actually don't necessarily think that Hickenlooper or Gabbard are socialist, although they certainly support more big government. And to some degree, that's what socialism is. I don't know if I'd call them capitalist. I don't think they fully believe in free markets the same way that I do, the same way that you guys do, and even the same way that John Avlon seems to do. But yeah, it's a funny thing, because I think it's defensible that they're capitalist, but they clearly won't call themselves capitalist. And when somebody isn't going to call themselves a capitalist, CNN shouldn't be Democrat-splaining or CNN-splaining these Democrats to help benefit them. And this seems like a catch-22. You know, both Hickenlooper and Gabbard would not call themselves capitalist in the primary, but as soon as the general election comes along and, you know, Donald Trump is saying, look, my opponent's a communist, a socialist, they'll say, oh no, I'm a capitalist. And this it's really a cheating situation. So CNN, I don't know how much they're lying, but they're certainly doing something extremely sketchy here. And the goal is to deceive the American people. So,
well, deception in my book is lying, so I'll just call it what it is, for me anyway. I wanted to ask you, though, about these presidential hopefuls. Now, Elizabeth Warren, they gave her some praise. They said, oh boy, she knows what capitalism is all about. But she doesn't seem to be in the running, really, or maybe she is, and I'm just not watching the polls very well.
She's in a very interesting spot, because she's the Bernie Sanders wing. She is the female equivalent of Bernie Sanders, but she also has this huge amount of baggage with her Pocahontas or Folksahontas history. She claims, it reminds me of in 2015, we had this white woman who identified as a black woman, and she was transracial. And to some degree, Elizabeth Warren strikes me as similar to that. That's
trans-native now. Trans-native. That's interesting. Well, we have some others. So let's just kind of go down their capitalist creds here. How about Beto O'Rourke? He's now the new front runner. Overnight, he goes right into front place as the $6.1 million man. Where does he stand on capitalism?
Does he stand for anything besides Beto O'Rourke? the guy
call.
just tries to be a cool
Well, do you know
kid.
he's a very rich man? Beto O'Rourke is a rich man, and the secret to his success is he married well. He married a very wealthy lady, so there you go. Maybe he does like capitalism, or else he likes other people to be capitalist, most notably the woman he got married to.
Well, I don't know. Some people might call that a gigolo. Is that a capitalist? Is that someone who's a capitalist? I don't know. Sorry.
Ask John Heinz or John Kerry.
Right.
John Kerry married well also. He married the Heinz fortune.
Yeah.
I love to think that I married well too. Sharon, you've met my wife. You know my wife really well. I think I married well, but wasn't necessarily for money. But Beto's done all right for himself, at least as far as marrying well. Anyway, just had to say that.
Just had to through Tyler and I clear off. Go ahead, Tyler.
About that.
Well, but the thing about Beto, if we're going to go back to him, which I think we should, he doesn't seem to stand for anything in particular. But he will come out and say, oh, Trump is evil, the wall is evil, and by the way, I like the Green New Deal. Let me tell you something about the Green New Deal. That is, if anything is socialist, the Green New Deal is socialist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to get rid of huge sectors of the American economy. And if you look at the actual bill, a lot of us, we tend to hear the whole part about getting rid of cow farts, and we go on and on about that. I don't think that's quite fair. I mean, she did release that. But if you look at the actual legislation, the thing that they are actually putting their votes behind It says that every single building in the United States of America should be upgraded, that this is the government's job to go into every single family's home and make sure that it's a green home, that it is up to snuff, that it's not going to destroy the environment. And that is socialism. You talk about socialism, technically it means the government control of the means of production. Well, what is more central to the means of production than the home that workers live in, that they spend their time in, that they lay their heads down on? And every building involved in producing wealth, every single building in the United States. So if anybody is willing to support the Green New Deal, they have to be considered socialist to some degree. And Beto said he does. Now, what would it look like if Beto were president and they pushed a Green New Deal? I don't know. I mean, I think he's not quite as firmly a socialist as Bernie Sanders or AOC, but it's still not going to look good.
Well, we've gone down a few of the presidential hopefuls, and CNN's claim that they're not socialists, but we've got to go to a short break. We're here with Tyler O'Neill, who is the senior editor at PJ Media and a conservative commentator who ceaselessly talks about politics, religion, and culture. And we'll be right back. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. Rick and I will be right back with our guest, Tyler O'Neill, after this message.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty,
Liberty.
Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can find our radio show there, our TV show, a lot of great articles, a lot of great information. Our guest this segment is Tyler O'Neill. He's a senior editor at PJ Media, and we're grateful for his time. Tyler, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Rick.
We're discussing your article, CNN Reality Check Slams Trump, says Democrats aren't socialists. I don't know, Tyler, should we believe anything that CNN says anymore? I think this organization has totally lost its credibility. I remember during the first Gulf War in 1991, how CNN was the little train that could, the little mouse that roared. They were there on the ground in Iraq. They had the Scud stud there. Everybody was praising CNN as far as cutting news, and that, geez, it seems like the mighty has fallen. Am I barking up the wrong tree here?
Oh no, you're entirely correct. CNN has decided, and I mean this is a problem when a news organization decides to go whole hog. I mean, CNN used to be, at least tried to be, the middle of the road. It tried to be we're going to listen to the Republicans and the Democrats. They were trying to be the whole fair and balanced thing before Fox grabbed that. And I thought they did a halfway decent job before President Trump came on the scene. I mean, they always had a liberal slant, but now it's absurd. They're giving Democrats campaign advice. They're putting people on who call Trump a white supremacist. I mean, this is not.
Tyler, have any idea where this come from? Where this change? CNN, like I said, in 1991, they were the only ones in Baghdad reporting on the U.S. airstrikes. I mean, they were a phenomenon at that time. What has happened in the past 27 years that has turned them from the news source to this? Anything the Democrats, anything the liberals want, anything Barack Obama wants, anything what Nancy Pelosi wants, 24-hour coverage of the Russian scandal. Where did the change? You have any idea where that change took place? I mean, they're more to the left than MSNBC. MSNBC used to be the liberal standard, but they have out left them. They left them and to the left. Any idea what happened there?
It sounds like there's a great expose waiting to be written. But I think Trump happened. I think Trump derangement syndrome took over. Wow. And we've seen videos from, what's his name? Those undercover videos.
James O'Keefe?
Really, yeah, James O'Keefe. Talking about how they act today, and they're looking for any story that will make Trump look bad, that will galvanize Democrats and the resistance, and that's a news strategy. That's an editorial strategy that makes your reporting suffer. Right. Now, I don't think they're worthless. I don't think everything they say is lies, but when you start from that partisan push, your view is going to get really clouded. And that's what we've seen. We've seen them develop a myopia. They can't see anything good in Trump at all. And they keep going further and further on one side.
Well, let's talk about the Democrat Party for a minute. I can remember an interview that I saw maybe in the early years of the Obama administration. Maxine Walters was questioning a high official in one of the big oil companies. And she like nearly choked on the words, "The socialist is going to nationalize your companies," and she nearly choked on that when she said, "But it seems like socialist is now the word to use, and that the word capitalism is a dirty word." Tyler O'Neill, in my opinion, capitalism has made this country the great country it is. Why is it a dirty word now? Why is socialism the wonderful word? Oh, call yourself a socialist and everybody loves you. Call yourself a socialist, they want to put you right next to Adolf Hitler. Or Joseph Stalin.
Capitalist. Yeah, no, it's because of the way that the education system has been hijacked. You get all these people who, you're a student, you're growing up, you think you're learning history, but you're learning a very anti-American, anti-capitalist view. And they don't teach the dangers of socialism. They don't teach the millions who are killed in socialist and especially communist experiences. They don't even really teach what's going on in Venezuela. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's not really socialism. Socialism's never fully been tried. And it's like, no, if every single example that happens from your ideology is tyrannical, is bad, and leaves people starving, makes tens of millions of people die in this way. And then you have another view, which, sure, no country is entirely capitalist. There's no perfect capitalist country. Even the United States has a really bad big government.
Just think how great it would be if there was.
I know, right?
Hey, Tyler, we only got about another minute or two, and I got to ask you this. Ronald Reagan says we must paint in bold colors, no pale pastels. And what I'm thinking, what I'm hoping is that these leftists, these Democrats, these socialists are truly painting themselves in the pastel colors. And hopefully Donald Trump is painting himself in the bold colors. So what I'm getting at is make it obvious for the American people to see the difference between what Donald Trump is going to offer as president and all those 20 or 30 candidates, however many is going to run on the Democrat side. I think this election, maybe more than any, will show the American people the difference in political ideologies. You think I'm trying to think too far outside the box?
No, it's shaping up to be exactly that way. We've seen Democrats come out and say that Mike Pence isn't even a decent guy. You can't call him that. I mean, Joe Biden, who is a former vice president, can't call the current vice president a decent guy just because he happens to be an evangelical Christian who believes certain things about sexuality. I mean, it's absurd. It's like every single step, they're making themselves more radical. And I tell you what, grab the popcorn, because by the end of this primary season, we're going to have a Democrat who is so outside the mainstream, whoever it is, that Americans should, they'll look at Trump. They saw Trump in 2016. Maybe not everybody was for him, thought he was a little weird. Now he's been president for 2 years now. By then it'll be 3 or 4. And people look at the other side and be like, okay, well, we thought Trump wasn't entirely there, but holy crap, he's shown up. And we see these Democrats who are like off on cloud 9. Of course we're going to go with the guy that we know is trustworthy.
I hope so. Tyler O'Neill, senior editor at PJ Media. We want to thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the promotion. Tyler, please tell our audience where they could read your articles, follow your work, and find out more about PJ Media.
Thanks. Well, as always, it's pjmedia.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Tyler, Tyler 2, the numeral 2, O'Neill, Oneil. And we actually have some big PJ Media news that just broke. We're joining with Salem Communications.
Wow.
Hall Network. And so we're going to be bigger than ever.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, keep us in mind. You know, we have 7 television stations out there in California. Maybe we should talk about how we can partner. Wouldn't that be exciting?
I think so.
All right, Tyler O'Neill, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thanks. You too.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. Sharon Angle is my co-host today. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Lathan Watts. He's a National Review Institute Regional Fellow and the director of the he's the Director of Legal Communications for First Liberty Institute. We're going to be talking about what starts in South Carolina. And we're not talking Civil War here. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back with our next guest.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
Goes to vote for Merrick,
the integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People died and fought for the right to vote. It's a wonderful
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and watch us on the AUN television network in California. And Sharon, our guest, is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to introduce Lathan Watts, who is a National Review Institute Regional Fellow and Director of Legal Communications for First Liberty Institute, a nonprofit law firm dedicated to restoring religious freedom for all Americans. Welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show, Lathan Watts.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we want to talk to you about an article you wrote, What Starts in South Carolina. Now, we know about the Civil War starting in South Carolina. Is this big news? I mean, we need to know what we're expecting here. It sounds like a constitutional issue once more.
Well, it could be. Yeah, that's why I titled the piece that, what starts in South Carolina. We know from history, small fights that start in South Carolina sometimes have big implications for the rest of the country. And there is a potential battle brewing there between the legislature and the president of the flagship university. The South Carolina State Legislature, the State Senate, has passed a bill, and I believe the House version is working its way through right now, that would require the state's universities to teach a course on the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and the Declaration of Independence, basically the founding documents of the country. And this current bill is kind of an update of an older law that was already on the books in South Carolina, and the president of the University of South Carolina had referred to this requirement as archaic and was not really happy about the idea of being required to teach these things to undergrads. So in our country today, where we have surveys that show, I think there was a most recent one towards the end of last year, that only 1 in 3 Americans could identify all 3 branches of government, and another third could not identify a single one. It seems to me like the legislature has a pretty good idea here, and I'm hoping that that bill will make its way through the legislature and that they will stand strong. The founders certainly intended for we the people to be the first line of defense for our own liberties, and how can you defend your rights if you don't know what they are? And in what we do for First Liberty Institute, specializing in religious liberty, we see this all the time. People are very confused about what the First Amendment really means when it has the Establishment Clause, the Free Exercise Clause. And if you don't know what your rights are, it's very difficult to know when they're being infringed upon. And that's why I wrote the piece. I think this, even though it's a matter that is specific to South Carolina, I think it's indicative of an issue that is bigger across the country.
You're right, it is. And possibly you didn't go far enough. Maybe you should have said that the legislature didn't go far enough in not requiring the president, who thinks this is an archaic document, to review his courses in civics and government and those founding documents. This seems to be a real trend in academia.
Yes, ma'am. I believe you're correct. And as I said, I mean, it's very important for people to study these things, on their own. I mean, I'm a parent, and we talk about these sorts of things at my house all the time, regardless of what's being taught in the public school system. But if our public education system is going to continue, basically failing at teaching basic civics to the degree that is, reflected in some of these surveys, then it raises another point, which is the importance of having a judiciary that's populated with federal judges that truly understand the founding and our liberties and their role, the proper role of the judiciary, and that makes the judicial nominations even more important. You can make the argument that if the people don't know their rights, then it's even more important that those folks in the judiciary do. And so that's just another lesson we can take away from this, that we're seeing play out in the United States Senate as they are confirming and voting on some of our president's nominees. I would say that maybe a survey should be done of our United States senators as well, because some of them have apparently not read Article 6 of the Constitution, which has a strict prohibition against a religious test for public office, based on some of the questioning we've seen of some of President Trump's nominees.
Well, you're exactly right on that, and I'm thinking that if we are thinking about hiring an attorney that has an undergrad degree from the University of South Carolina, maybe we should think twice, because they don't know what our rights are if they're not being taught in that school, and perhaps this even does go that deep, because I would think your alumni association for that university, as well as around the country where people are looking at students and what their degrees really entail, that this could be a real funding problem for the president of that university should this kind of rhetoric get out that he thinks the Constitution is archaic.
Well, luckily for you, if you have a religious liberty claim, you can always contact First Liberty Institute, and we'll represent you for free, so you don't have to worry about that.
Bless you. Bless you for that. That's great. We're interested in your article you've written. It says, "What Starts in South Carolina?" And you've quoted one of my favorites, and especially now that we're in the legislative throes here. Mark Twain once was the editor of the Territorial Enterprise here in Virginia City, Nevada, and he said, when the legislature is in session, the people suffer. And you quote him as well as saying that a man who doesn't read the newspapers is uninformed, and a man who reads the newspapers is misinformed. So what do you count this up to as far as the president of the South Carolina University? Is he misinformed, uninformed, or is he part of an agenda?
It's hard for me to say, what his motivations are, and I always try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But the reason that I quoted that, which is usually attributed to Mark Twain, although I couldn't verify it, but that is what I quoted in the article, is that there is certain there's a danger that's even worse than constitutional ignorance, and that is knowing things that aren't so. There are a lot of people who think they know a lot of things about constitutional rights and liberties that are incorrect, and that's even worse than not knowing what they are. So all of this to say is it's vitally important that we as citizens understand what our freedoms are. And you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a constitutional scholar, but you just need a basic understanding of what the Constitution protects and what it doesn't, so that if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like your rights have been violated, you at least have some idea of what to do about it. And we see this all the time at First Liberty Institute. We represent people all over the country, people of all faiths, and none of our clients were scholars, but they knew at an instinctual level that what was happening to them should not be happening to them in America. And that's why they contacted us, or we contacted them when we heard about what was going on with them. And we're proud to defend all of our clients across the country, as I said, free of charge, to defend religious liberty for all Americans.
Well, we have to go to a short break right now, Lathan. We've been talking with Lathan Watts, who is with the National Review Institute. He is a National Review Institute fellow at the First Liberty Institute. And we've been talking about an article he wrote, What Starts in South Carolina, which is, once again, a constitutional issue. And we are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We can also be seen on our television show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. And we'll be right back with Lathan Watts. I'm Sharon Angle, and we're here with Rick Trader.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, and my co-host today is Sharon Angle. For rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can see our television show there, listen to our radio show, read a lot of great articles and information. Our guest this segment is Lathan Watts. He is a National Review Institute Regional Fellow and Director of Legal Communications for First Liberty Institute. Nathan, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Sure, thanks for having me.
I was very interested to read your article, and that's why we've asked you to join us today on Conservative Commandos. What starts in South Carolina? Nathan, Lathan, you blow my mind when you start your article by saying, in South Carolina, the state legislature and the flagship university, meaning University of South Carolina, seem to be at odds where their college students should be required to study the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. Lathan, maybe they should have started studying this way back in grade school. I mean, I think the problem with our country goes a little in front of college kids learning this stuff. This is Civics 101 that kids should start learning in first grade. Am I being outside the box on this?
Not at all. Not at all. As parents, we should be in charge of our children's education from day one, until they graduate, whatever level they top out at. And I know I take an active interest in my daughter's education, but you're exactly right. If this is the first time, if you go to a university and it's the first time you've studied the Constitution or the Federalist Papers or the Declaration of Independence, something has gone very wrong with your public education system, no matter where you are. As I said before, the founders, in their idea of what the purpose of education was to create a citizenry that was capable of living in a free society, in a republic. And that means, just as you said, we should be studying these from very early on, and probably all the way through our education system. As I said before, so that we, the people, can be the first guardians of our own liberty.
And you also write in your article, you pinpoint a recent Annenberg Public Policy Center study that revealed only one-third of Americans could name the three branches of government. And I was trying to think of, and I think I saw this around election time, and maybe Sharon, you can help me. Who was it that was running for Congress who said that the three branches of government was the House, the Senate, and the presidency? Was that OAC?
I believe so. I think it was her.
Lathan, do you remember that? You remember that?
I do. I believe you're correct. I believe that was Ms. Cortez.
So it isn't just students or members of the general public. I doubt a lot of the members of the Congress, of the Senate, know what the three branches of government are. Again, this is Civics 101, and maybe this should be required teaching for anyone who's running for the House or the Senate. Lathan, am I being crazy here?
I don't think so. One of the points that I raised in the article is that if you have a constitutionally illiterate general population, they are more apt to elect constitutionally illiterate representatives, or they're more apt to fall for constitutionally dubious ideas like the most recent court packing plan. If you know anything about history, the last time somebody tried to pack the court was FDR, and a Democratic Congress opposed him. I don't think that would happen today if that plan was tried to be, was attempted to be put in place. And I believe you're exactly correct that this is one of the inherent problems with a populace that does not know what its rights are. They are more apt to elect people who clearly don't know what the Constitution says or what their role in the government. And that survey also showed that the more people knew about the Constitution, there was direct correlation between their willingness to support the independence of the judiciary. And as I said before, if the people don't know what their rights are, the judiciary becomes even more important. And I think this survey backs that up. The more people understood the Constitution, the more they were willing to support the idea of the separation of powers and the independent judiciary as the referee between the executive and the legislative branch on certain issues.
Lathan, and you and Sharon touched on this a little bit earlier about religious liberty, and I wanted you to expand on this if you could. I love history, and a few years ago on my birthday, I went to Independence Hall. I did the tour of Philadelphia and not that far from it. And I was reminded during that visit that the founding fathers, now we're talking about the founding fathers here, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, never started a meeting without first a prayer. But it seems like religious liberty is under attack here. And could you talk a little bit more about that? Expand upon it, how you think religious liberty is one of our rights written into our Constitution, written into the moral code for our society.
Absolutely. It is the first freedom. It is the first part of the First Amendment. And there's a reason for that. The founders understood that if government was ever allowed to occupy the space between man and his God, or man and his conscience, even if he's not particularly religious, then there's literally no limit to what government can do. I mean, if a government can force itself between, a man and how he worships, or how he lives according to his faith, then it's a slippery slope. You mean, just pick whatever your favorite of the rest of the Bill of Rights. A government that can force a man to violate his own conscience is not going to think twice about taking his guns away, or searching him without a warrant, or forcing him to testify against himself. I mean, you name it, they all go if you lose religious liberty. And that's why it's first in the First Amendment. And a lot of what you're seeing in court cases today and around the country comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what that First Amendment liberty means. You have two clauses. You have the Establishment Clause and you have the Free Exercise Clause. And a lot of the case law, even a lot of the case law that we engage in with First Liberty Institute, has come from a sort of a twisted understanding of the Establishment Clause. And it has created an environment where really people in government, in trying to be quote unquote neutral, their actions actually end up being hostile towards religion. So a lot of this comes from case law, and there's an old case called Lemon versus Kurtzman from the 1970s that instituted what was called the Lemon Test. That test has been very, very hard, very difficult for lower courts to apply that precedent from the Supreme Court. Fortunately, we just argued a case in front of the Supreme Court, the Bladensburg World War I Veterans Memorial case, where we represented the American Legion, defending a nearly 100-year-old Veterans Memorial, where we presented arguments to the court that they should basically abandon the Lemon Test because it has created more confusion than it has resolved, and they should adopt an analysis of these kinds of cases that's more in line with the text of the First Amendment, which, as you know, clearly states Congress can make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. The test that we're suggesting, that we suggested at oral argument, should be focused more on, has the government coerced anyone to worship? Because that's really what that clause is about. Or has the government compelled anyone to support some state-approved church? And if not, then the Establishment Clause has not been violated. And many times people, are deciding issues and they read, the Establishment Clause and they forget to keep reading, because the very next phrase is the Free Exercise Clause. And the founders never intended for government to tell someone, hey, it's fine for you to worship wherever you want to on Sunday, but come Monday morning when you go to work, you better do things our way. That's not what free exercise is about. Free exercise means you live according to your faith, or you live according to your conscience. That's why religious liberty should be important even to people who aren't necessarily religious, because it protects them as well. So you have correctly identified a major issue in our country, and much of it is rooted in the fact that people either do not understand what the Constitution as written protects or is intended to protect, or, as I said earlier, they simply know something that isn't so, such as the separation of church and state. That is conspicuously absent from the Constitution, the Declaration, and the Federalist Papers. So if the legislature in South Carolina stands firm and those college kids study those three things, they're not going to find separation of church and state anywhere in there. It was sort of incorporated into case law many years ago, and it's created a lot of this confusion that a lot of the cases that we engage in at First Liberty Institute are seeking to resolve.
Latham Watts, First Liberty Institute, we want to thank you for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos. I learned from our guests. I believe our listeners do too. Please tell our audience how they could read your article, follow your work, and find out more about the First Liberty Institute.
Certainly. The article is up at townhall.com, so you can see the article there. If you follow First Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there are links there that will take you to that article as well. FirstLiberty.org is our website. There's a wealth of information there about religious liberty. That's the only kind of law that we practice. We're a nonprofit, so our clients are never charged for our services. So, right at the top of the page, there's a tab that says Get Legal Help. If you have experienced discrimination against you based on your religious beliefs or practicing of your religion, we'd encourage you fill that out and let us know about it. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. Or if you know of someone who has, feel free to refer us to them. The FirstLiberty.org is full of great information. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. If you text the word liberty to 474747, you'll get a text back that will take you through a prompt to get on our email list. We send out a newsletter every other week. We're not going to spam you to death. It's just updates on all of our cases and provide you a lot of information directly that way. So there's lots of ways to connect with us, and hopefully your audience has heard enough that they want to hear more.
Well, Nathan, I'm going to get on that list, and I know we're running late. I got to ask you this quick question, and this is unfair to ask you to answer in 15 seconds. Can you foresee a time when the Supreme Court is finally going to answer this question of religious liberty?
I think so. I really do. We have, of course, the case that I mentioned that we just argued. We have a couple more that are on their way, where we are certainly going to give them the opportunity to do so. And I think the current makeup of the court is probably the most inclined to answer these big questions than any court in the last 40 to 50 years.
Latham Watts, First Liberty Institute, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for having me.
And this is the Conservative Commandos with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be back with more right after this break.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for healthcare.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Well, Sharon, that just about wraps it up for today's show. We always have such great guests. I always learn so much about them. Sharon, will you please thank them for us?
I sure will. I'm excited to thank Devin Watkins, who is an attorney with the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and he was talking about why the border wall is a constitutional endeavor by Trump. We also talked and want to thank Tyler O'Neill. He's always fun. He's the senior editor at PJ Media and ceaselessly talks about politics, religion, and culture. And of course, he wanted to talk about why the Dems are now saying, or at least CNN is saying, they're not socialists. And finally, we had Latham Watts, who is a National Review Institute Regional Fellow at and Director of the Legal Communications for First Liberty Institute. He wrote an article, What Starts in South Carolina, and it's another constitutional fight over the if you can believe it, the Constitution and their University of South Carolina president saying that it's archaic. He doesn't want to teach it anymore.
Unbelievable. The revisionist history. And Sharon, please tell our audience how they could follow you and what you do when you're not here at Conservative Commandos.
Of course. They can follow me at SharonAngle.com, and we're now doing our documentary out there. Anybody who wants to learn about election fraud and how to make your elections have some integrity, free, fair, and honest, go to gettrilogy.com, or of course my website, and it'll be under Not on My Watch at SharonAngle.com.
All right. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.